How do you see the future of healing, or how do you see the future of medicine? Medicine is the wrong word, healing, I suppose. Do you have a vision for how things might be in 20 or 50 years' time? I mean, will we still have orthodox medicine? Will we have what you do? Will we have anything at all? I mean, will people move into, is it an evolutionary thing in the sense of people moving into their power, as I think you called it?
I think, well, what I would like to see is the healing modalities becoming much more prevalent in support of the medical system.
Right.
And I think there needs to be a commitment from both sides to let down their judgments of each other,
right,
to really work together to support the whole energy system. The most successful doctors, I think, those that don't treat the illness but treat the patient. And that's very much what we do as energy practitioners. We treat the patient, we don't treat necessarily. Well, we do both, but we look at the whole energy system. And I think that's where the direction of medicine, I hope it goes. My sense is that as we explore much more the spiritual concepts that are present now in everyday, in the sort of everyday spiritual media, about books like The Secret, you know, creating and manifesting what we want in our lives, that we will, I mean, there are many texts about yogis who have complete control over their physical body. And it was previously necessarily for the yogis up on the mountain. But the yogis have come down the mountain, and they're teaching now in the everyday world. And in my sense, with the direction, and I mean, there's all the discussion of the changes coming, depending on your belief system, about ascension and people moving, and about the whole world changing, is that there does seem to be a groundswell for moving forward in the direction of using more healing tools in the medical environment. You could just walk into a centre now, an average hospital, and they have a reflexology and you know, I mean, osteopathy. I mean, there is a movement towards not only using these complementary techniques, but also formalizing the energy techniques that are also out there. And so my sense is that will continue, and I think there's so much momentum built forward, pushing this forward now, that it can only increase.
Let me come back to the ascension point, because I think it's a good one, and I'd like to ask you about that, because that obviously relates also to this question of, you know, the energetic perspective, if you like, for want of a better expression, rather than the sort of slightly what I would call narrower perspective of looking at the body as, if you like, a solid object, or a body, you know, that I think most of us have been taught a physical body without much more than that, and I know I'm exaggerating slightly to make the point, but you understand what I'm saying. But, you know, let me ask you this. I mean, let me actually mention something, and that is that actually I was listening to a wonderful interview that Deepak Chopra did with Tony Robbins. This is actually about, I think, 15, 20 years ago, quite some time ago. And Chopra was saying that as a GP, or as an MD, I think, in the States, you know, he felt he'd become a legal drug pusher. You know, people would come to his practice, his surgery, and he would prescribe them tranquilizers or antibiotics and painkillers and things like that. What he said that he noticed was that, you know, sometimes things worked well and it happened, but, you know, other times he felt that, you know, they weren't really changing, that, you know, it was like coming back for more. There wasn't really an end game, you know. In other words, what he was doing was like, he wasn't really giving them, if you like, the power to understand that they could change, and that the medical profession, in a sense, quote unquote, did not have the means to show them how to change. And as I think, you know, perhaps we both agree, well, let me put to you that some people say, and I would certainly agree with it, that in many cases, if not in all cases, the medical profession or orthodox medicine tends to treat the symptoms rather than the cause of the disease, whatever you think the cause might be. But to cut a long story short, where do you stand with that? And is there not an element here of, based on what you do, is there not an element here of saying that if you support the continuation of orthodox medicine such as it is, that you are in fact reinforcing that, you know, that status, that establishment, you know, working alongside you or whatever that might be, but actually still reinforcing, if you like, the restricted, potentially, the less, if you like, expansive perspective of looking at people from an energetic perspective, as opposed to looking at them from terms of a physical body with symptoms that might be healed or cured simply by painkillers, tranquilizers, or the latest drug.
It's an interesting question. I can't say that I would choose to generalize in any way, because there are many amazing healers doing amazing work which obviate the need for working with medical doctors. And there are many amazing medical doctors doing amazing work using medical techniques which are incredibly supportive. And I don't want to necessarily generalize and say I'm on one side or the other.
Right.
I think I've expressed through my own choice of my own journey, I have chosen a path which looks at the fact that there is more behind the disease than just necessarily the symptomatic process that is exhibiting. And I've chosen a path to which supports exploring what is behind the symptoms to support the healing of an individual. And with healing as the focus for anyone, I will support anyone who supports the healing of that individual.
Right, okay.
Now, would I choose to work with somebody who specifically focuses on the symptom? If we were working together in the future,
right.
I perhaps as a personal choice would not do that.
Okay.
However, some people would. Would I choose to work with a medical practitioner who has skills in a completely different area to me to support the healing of a patient if they were open to working with me? Absolutely. I would do that. But I don't know. I think for medical practitioners it's for up to them to reflect, I think, on their own training in their own environment as to whether the medicine they're choosing is supporting a symptomatic process or supporting the greater underlying healing, and whether they have that perspective. Would I choose to force my belief on them? No. Would I be hopeful that they might see beyond necessarily that? Yes.
So you would see it as like an evolutionary process?
Trying to make people change is a waste of time.
Okay.
They have to want to, not choose to as individuals.
They have to want to change.
They have to want to change, and they may also think that they don't need to change, and that's not up to me to tell them to do so. It may sound like I'm sitting on the fence, but ultimately, I suppose in the work I do, I work in the environment I choose to work in, and I work with people who I choose to work to, and I have a particular way of working. I don't believe in throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There are many amazing people doing amazing things out there in all fields, including the mainstream medicine. And would I advocate the type of example that you use with Deepak Chopra in that interview? No. Would I be an advocate of it? No. But that's my personal choice.
That's just his perspective as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And am I, through my own work, demonstrating my particular choice? Yes.